US congressional leaders and White House officials are meeting in an attempt to end the partial government shutdown. President Donald Trump threatened to declare a national emergency if the Democrats fail to approve the funding for a border wall with Mexico.
Well, to discuss this and more, we're joined by Professor Ed Blakely, US political commentator and former White House staffer. Ed, great to see you this morning.
Great to see you.
So where does this end? It looks like, well, President Trump certainly is saying he's prepared to let the shutdown go on and on. Obviously, this is having severe implications for a lot of Americans.
Apparently, he hasn't read the Constitution. The Constitution says the Congress can override his veto. And the Democrats have almost enough votes in the lower house to do that. When people run every 2 years, shutdowns are not good for their careers. And the Senate has some fresh senators. So this won't be good for their careers either. I think the president is now challenging the entire Congress. And congressmen don't like their staffs not being paid. So this is going to end pretty soon.
Now, he has threatened to use emergency powers to get this wall built. Is it likely he would actually resort to that, or do you think he's bluffing?
What emergency power is he talking about? The emergency powers he's talking about will require a flood or nuclear accident or something like this. He doesn't have the power just to, off the top of his head, declare an emergency.
We sort of flagged that yesterday. I guess he was alluding to a national security emergency as such.
Then the military would have to do it. And the military probably wouldn't do it because this is civilian activity. They're very reluctant to do this sort of thing. He just talks off the top of his head. He should spend some time reading the thing called the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. They're pretty good documents, and they tell you what you can and can't do. The president is really at the end of his string now. This wall is very important to him.
Well, it's not only very important, it's a must, isn't it? Because
it's a must.
That was core to his promise when he was elected.
Very much core. He didn't do the health care thing. He did do the tax. So now he has to do this in some shape or form because his electorate is actually shrinking. And if he doesn't hold on to that little bit he has, with impeachment really on the back burner, it can come to the front burner very quickly. He's in real trouble.
So what is it going to take, do you think, for one side to blink? I mean, the Democrats have already offered to pay over $1 billion towards this border wall. That was rebuffed. What's it going to take from here? Is there any middle ground, or will Donald Trump stand firm on this till the end?
Well, he has to have a victory here. And the Democrats will say, well, maybe we'll put another billion toward this if you do DACA. DACA is really the trump card here, and it's very important to the Democrats. The wall is not. And the Democrats say, yeah, we'll give you $1 billion this year, $1 billion next year, $1 billion a year after, because we're in budget trouble. It sounds very good. And 73% of the people are for DACA. So he could declare a victory in that way. But the wall in 5 years, would it be built? Unlikely.
Yeah, you're talking about, of course, the so-called dreamers.
Yes.
The children of those illegal immigrants who are in the United States at the moment. So you think the Democrats are going to hold out for a deal on that?
On that or an immigration bill that looks a lot like it, because you got to give the Democrats something they want. You can't say, gee, we don't want this. Give them something they really want, and then they're in a bind. But right now, they have the advantage. He's saying no. They're saying yes to everything else. He's got to give them something they really want, and then he'll get something he wants.
Now, you mentioned earlier Donald Trump is now facing quite a diverse Congress, specifically in the House of Representatives, where a record number of women were elected recently. And in terms of impeachment, now Nancy Pelosi hasn't sort of ruled out impeachment. She says she's going to wait to see what the findings of the Mueller report will be. What will she be looking for in that report?
Well, she'll be looking for two things. One, the Russian issue, and we've all been through that. And the other is obstruction of justice. And on the obstruction of justice, they just need to reduce Twitter file for that. But I think these are the two things. If this house of cards starts falling, Mueller will say there was definitely collusion here, and he'll have the evidence. That's why Manafort's so important. Because if Manafort goes down and says the Russians actually hired me, he's in deep, deep trouble.
So you think it's more likely to play out that the Democrats will just hold their place at the moment, let the Mueller investigation run its course, and then they'll act?
They'll act because they're pushed into acting. They can't look like they're aggressively acting because they'll put off a lot of people.
Yep.
Impeachment is not something American people like. And furthermore, for people running for president, it's great to have Donald Trump running against you, right? The Democrats want Donald Trump running, but very much weakened. And that's what Mueller's doing. He's taken away his money. He's taken away his family. And he's now taking away his political edge. So Mueller doesn't have to drive the nail home. He just has to find it and say, here it is. You drive it home. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's discredited everything around the president. And it's possible he'll have enough charges on the president. So even if he got a pardon, he's facing state actions in New York. So the president is very nervous now because he knows what he thought would save him, and that is the possibility that he could either himself or get the vice president to stop this is not going to happen.
Well, you speak there of opponents of Trump at the next election. Let's take a look at that. Certainly as far as the Democrats are concerned, a number of Democrats certainly scoping out the possibility of running, Elizabeth Warren among them.
Yeah, I think I have a little more Native American blood than she does, but I haven't put my hand up.
That's a controversy in itself, isn't it?
That's a controversy in itself.
President Trump has made a lot of, obviously referring to her as Pocahontas.
Yes, the Democrats have a wide field, but Biden is number one. He's declared himself the person to be president of the United States. He looks the part. He can win in Indiana. He can win in Ohio. He can win almost everywhere.
So why didn't he run at the last election?
Because it was owed to the Clintons, and the party was tight in those days. The party's been broken up now. You can see by the people who are in the Congress. So the party's more diverse, and Joe Biden fits the mold. Now, he has to get probably a woman. Kamala Harris would fit that role on the ticket. But we have Bevo from Texas, who's a possibility as well. So I think it'll be those three people will be the front runners for the Democrats.
Now, on the Republican side, we had some interesting comments from Mitt Romney, the incoming US Senator. He lashed out at Donald Trump in a Washington Post article. Why would he do that?
Because he's positioning himself. Maybe not to run for president, but for taking over the Senate, being the master of the Senate. And that's a role that is vacant now. So if he takes over the Senate, he only has to bring 10 senators with him to hold the power in the Senate. And that's very possible. The new people who've been elected don't owe much to Trump. So the smart thing them to do is look like senators.
But nonetheless, is it not a bit of a dangerous game for him to play, for Romney to play, by stepping out there and criticising the president to that extent by perhaps alienating a lot of Republicans?
No, he's not alienating Republicans. He's alienating the president's Republicans. But the larger group of Republicans he wants to represent, the Republicans who are middle-class, suburban Republicans, that they just lost in the last election, Romney's appealing to them and appealing to the larger set of Democrats who want to see someone who looks and acts presidential.
That is sounding very much like Joe Biden of the Democrats, isn't it?
It is.
Two characters looking at unifying a split party.
It is. It is. And I see this election as a healing election. That's what people are going to talk about. They're going to talk about the past rather than the future. I think the current president has to worry about, as he's being belligerent, he's alienating people while these people are bringing people on board. I say 2019 is going to be a very interesting year.
Indeed, and we'll leave it there. Ed Blakely, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.